might know what this is about, and you've come here to find out more about it, provide a bit of support. So this guy, Adnan, has been harassing women and girls in Glasgow for quite a while now. His videos were seen by people in his college class who said, this is concerning, this is really concerning, that this person who's being abusive to women and coercive control over women in order to treat them as chattel, as objects, and do whatever the hell he wants, and is disgusting behaviour, and everybody knows this is disgusting behaviour. It is fine when you're out on a night out to go and talk to somebody, chat them up, try and impress them, try and impress a guy, try and impress a girl. This is fine, but when it gets to the degree and the level that he is operating on, and to the attitude to women, the hatred of women that he has, this can't be allowed to progress. Now, it's not just him. Okay, so this has come about because of him, because of his behaviours, but it is not just him. Every single woman that I know, when they go out on a night out, tell me there is not one night out that they have where there isn't some guy who will try to slip a hand somewhere, pinch, pull them away. If they're drunk, if they're vulnerable, try and get them away from their friends. This is a culture in Glasgow, and it needs to be stopped. It needs to be called out for what it is, and it needs to be stamped out. So we're asking everybody here to come, to listen to what is being said, to listen to the women who've been affected by this, not just by him, but by other guys as well. And we want to try and educate people in Glasgow and help them to learn how to see this behaviour, how to recognise this behaviour, how to name it, and then how to call it out and prevent it and protect people from abusive behaviour, from rape, from sexual assault, everything along those lines. We don't want this to continue in Glasgow anymore. So the hashtag is Game Over Glasgow. There is not going to be game in Glasgow anymore. It's going to be stopped. Okay? Now, Mandy from the Empowered Women Project is the one that called this event, but it doesn't matter what group you're in. It doesn't matter what party you're in. It doesn't matter if you go out in the town at night or if you stay at home with a hot cup of cocoa. What matters is this is abusive. This is dangerous. We have had countless tweets and messages from women after this broke to say, that was the guy. I went to the police. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what his name was. He chased me around the town. I had to run into a hotel. I had to run into a club or a pub and ask for help to get away from him. He wouldn't leave me alone. He started calling me names when I refused him. We cannot let this happen. Women need to be able to be safe. You need to be able to look down that alley and go, yeah, I can walk down there. I'm on my own. I'm safe. There's no risk here. We want that in Glasgow. We want people to be able to go out and enjoy themselves and have a good time and not be afraid and not feel, I have to be with my group. I've got to have my keys through my hand when I'm on my own. I've got to have my key ready to get into the door fast in case somebody gets me while I'm getting there. This is a culture of misogyny. It's a culture that stems from patriarchy. It stems from seeing women as lesser, as objects to be won, to be fought over, and we are not. We are not things that you fight over. We are not things that you scare to get what you want. We are not things. We are people. So it doesn't matter if you've got a sister, if you've got a mother, if you've got a daughter, a cousin, an aunt, or anyone. If you're a guy, whether or not you have a female relative, this is still important to you. Because you know that this is what damages this country, this is what damages the society when people don't feel safe to go out at night. And when they do, they get harassed, they get chased, they get followed, they get called names. They're filmed while they're asleep. 2 people I know of got in touch with YouTube after the story broke and said, that was me in the video. that was me sleeping there when he filmed himself and filmed me. I didn't know. I was too drunk and I didn't understand what was going on. I did not consent to that. Agency is something that is severely lacking. Unless somebody says, I am really happy to do things with you, I'm sober, I'm awake, I'm aware, you're nice, let's have fun together, that's great. But when it comes to the, yeah, you wouldn't get anyone else, why don't you come with me? Come on, honey. It's the seedy, insidious creepiness of the behaviour. And as I said, it's not just him. There's about another 100 Adnans out there right now who think that this is okay, who think that this is acceptable. And I know that there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that will hear this and say, no, it bloody well isn't. And we're not putting up with it anymore. So there's going to be a call for people to start working together to try and change the culture in Glasgow, to try and change the behaviours, to teach people to recognise it and to make sure that this doesn't happen. Thank you.
Hello there, yeah, just to echo some of the things there that Deborah said. So I founded the Empowered Women Project, but this is not limited to one group or organisation. This is a huge problem that we all need to come together and tackle together. So I think when I seen the video from BBC The Social, the line that really resonated with me was, her opinion doesn't matter. Well, let me tell you what. My opinion does matter, and that's why I made this event happen today. My opinion does matter. If I'm drunk and I'm out on a night out in Glasgow, I don't want to be worried about some guy acting coercively towards me and, you know, getting me drunk beyond my knowledge, videoing me against my consent and then posting that on the internet. I don't want to have to find out about some guy I've slept with on someone else's Instagram page and then see myself on his YouTube. And just the horror that brings about. It's absolutely disgusting behaviour, and like we said, the guy's arrested. That was a great result for us yesterday. However, there's so many more guys going about out there that he's coached, that he's taught how to act like him, and it's happening on this street right here. That's why we made the event here today. And you know, some of these girls are younger, or they don't feel empowered enough to tell him, no, I don't want to see you, I don't want to give you my number, but they don't feel empowered enough to say no. They start blaming themselves. Is it something I wore? Is it something I said? Did I have too much to drink? Maybe I shouldn't be putting myself in that predicament. Well, that's not the case. This guy is scary, he's manipulative, and the more that we can kind of get rid of this culture and talk about it, and I suppose educate younger people on how to deal with it, we're going to be doing some good work. So thank you everyone that's come out today, it's really important. I'm now going to hand over to my good friend and a woman who I look up to dearly, Dr. Jones, and she's got a few things she'd like to say on the subject of chode. We're going to lighten the mood a wee bit.
Oh God, put in the spot. Again, just echoing the thanks for people to come out. Mandy actually was coming round to my house to record a podcast when this all kicked off, and the way that I see this is not to take it so as something that's outrageous or shocking, but something that we should be laughing at, because the idea that this man thinks that he can walk up and down Buchanan Street in Glasgow filming people without their consent. I mean, on a busy Saturday, could you imagine somebody doing that right now, creeping behind their phones, thinking that they were big on their internet following? We need to not only call it out, but we need to make sure that if we see this behaviour as citizens, that we feel that we can approach and help people. I've heard stories over the last couple of days where there's been so many stories, but when you hear people who are having problems, because the idea is to try and stun and to try and confuse and to try and make you feel like what the hell's going on if you're coming out of a train station and somebody's asking you questions about yourself, personal questions. It's to try and baffle you. Look out for this behaviour and be the person that stands up and actually asks the woman or the person who's targeted to be okay. Are they okay? And actually stand with them. We want it to be so uncomfortable for people like this that they are the ones that feel that they have to be checking their back and making sure that they're not in trouble. Not inciting violence, but I mean that we shouldn't let them feel like they can do this, and we shouldn't let them feel that it's something that is they can take from our streets and from our community and from our city. And I think that's it. I'm not going to talk about a rude word. I'm in the middle of Buchanan Street. Where's Rhiannon? Yeah, and I'm going to invite out and introduce Rhiannon Spears, who's an SNP councillor who's also been involved in this. Here she is.
Hi folks. Firstly, thanks for Mandy and Dr. Jones for organising this event today. It's really important that this conversation is a public one, and it's something that everyone talks about. I think the first thing that I want to say is this is nothing new. I'm going to look at the women standing with me. Are you surprised at this? Are you surprised that this happens? This is an everyday experience for women, and it's not a Glasgow issue, it's not a Scotland issue, it's not a UK issue, it's a global issue where we have issues of masculinity, issues of femininity. We have a culture in which this is normalised. Rape culture is normal. I said that quite openly on Twitter, and a lot of people are surprised by that, but I don't think women are. Rape culture is absolutely normal within our society. Seeing consent is something that can be bargained away, or something that can be discussed or pushed. Seeing words and phrases like last minute resistance, what the hell is that? That's normal. That's normal in this society for last minute resistance to be a conversation that men have online with each other to discuss how to overcome a woman's consent. When a woman is actively withdrawing consent, instead of that meaning no, it's just last minute resistance. I'm disgusted, but I'm not surprised. And that's why days like today are so important, that we have a platform, a public platform, we're on Buchanan Street, that we're going to talk about consent. We're going to talk about how we teach the language of consent to our young people, so that when young women and young men go out into clubs, they know how to say no. And I think that's so important. We're missing a language of consent within our young people at the moment. They don't have the language to say no, and men don't understand when no means no. And when I say men, let me clarify, I'm not talking about all men. I'm not saying all men do this, but I'm saying that all of us, women and men, are part of the problem, because as a culture we normalise this behaviour. So I want today, and the conversation that's going to start, I want it to be one of consent. Sex education, where does this start? When do we teach women that sex is not a transaction between women and men, or men and men, or whoever's having sex? It's not a transaction. Sex is something to be enjoyed. Let's start talking about female pleasure. Let's start talking about what sex should be. Yes, hi Buchanan Street, let's talk about the female orgasm. It's here. So these are the public conversations that we need to have. Consent isn't good enough. It should be enthusiastic consent. It should be enjoyment. It should be orgasmic informed consent. That is what we want. So let's move forward positively, saying orgasms for all, and saying no to A-game, because let's face it, it wasn't given to anyone any. And that's not good enough. And I think we need to change the conversation about consent, we need to change the conversation about sex, and we need to start thinking about relationships, sex education, consent education much differently. So I'm so thankful that this conversation has been started today, and I hope it doesn't stop here, because movements like Me Too and Time's Up, they're not stopped, they've not solved anything, it's the same, we're still seeing the same problems. The conversation has started and it starts today. Let's go forward, change the conversations about consent, relationship and sex education within our schools, within Scotland. Let's go for it. Thanks very much, guys.